Okay, next incredible video. So you should have your Q3 draft on your desk. I hope that as you wrote it, you used the Q3 structure guide as your sample. So basically, your introduction paragraph should have all of these things. You could start out with an argument by analogy as your hook. That's not required, but it is a good way to start if you're looking for an interesting way to begin your essay. You do need to address the topic and show that it's complex and you're not solely right, but you've given thought to the complexity and the nuances of the issue. And then you very clearly and concisely state your stance, your thesis, your claim. That has to be crystal clear in your face right there in your introduction paragraph. And then your body paragraphs explore your evidence, your commentary, basically proving why you're right. Somewhere in there, you should give the opposition side and then offer a rebuttal with complex range of examples. So you don't want to have just one example serving as your support, but you need to have a variety of examples because the more examples you have, probably the more convincing your argument's going to be. I would start each body paragraph off with a reason why. I am right because this. Another reason that I am right is because of this. And then you use your examples to back up your reasons. In your conclusion, which is often the hardest thing to write, especially in a time limit, perhaps make an ethical appeal, ask a rhetorical question, use whatever rhetorical strategy that we've learned and studied in the past 9 weeks to conclude and give your essay a final punch. So yeah, here is the structure that I'm hoping you all followed. And another tip of advice is at the beginning of this tab, there is an extensive page that's tips from an AP reader. I would have you read the entire page. You need to make sure that if anything, especially next semester when you've forgotten all about AP Lang, read these tips from an AP reader pages because they are awesome. They are golden. Here's the AP page in a nutshell. It says, students should very explicitly state his or her thesis. Refute the opposing view to show that you understand the complexity of the issue, but make your argument central to the essay. Your grounds and your evidence should be logical. You don't want to have any post hoc or hasty generalization fallacies in your essay. And then if the prompt allows you to use a personal observation or experience as support for your argument, you may use I, because obviously you saw or experienced it, but you should never, ever, ever say you in an essay. So check for that as you are doing some self-editing. So the rubric for the Q3 prompt is very similar to that of the Q2 prompt. The first thing you need to do to get 1 point is to have a clear, concise thesis. It says your thesis needs to be defensible and you are responding to the prompt and clearly take a position. Don't be fickle and be like, well, I can see this side and then I can also see this side. Like, what is your argument? You need to clearly state it and make that decision. To get 2 points up to 5 points is your development of your evidence and your commentary. And those things have to be very convincing and logical. Now, don't forget your audience here. Who is your audience? It's the College Board people. It's smart people trying to determine whether or not you can compose an argument that should get you credit to pass the freshman English course. So you're not convincing your grandma, you're not convincing other juniors in North Lincoln, but you need to make yourself appear very reasoned and pretty much really smart is what you need to appear to be. Your evidence and your commentary need to be relevant to your thesis, well developed, consistently and explicitly explaining the relationship between your evidence and your thesis. And then that last point, which I still don't get this rubric and this one sophistication point, because look at what all it takes to get just 1 point. In your writing, if you show the complexity of the issue, if you successfully prove your thesis, if you show the text within a broader context, if you engage in concessions, rebuttals, or refutations to other arguments, if you make effective rhetorical choices that strengthen the impact of your argument, and your style is vivid and persuasive and convincing and appropriate, you get just 1 point. See, I'm thinking that some of that stuff would go into the evidence and commentary, but the way that the College Board laid out this rubric, all of that falls under the sophistication point. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to watch what I say and then pause and reflect and do a little self-editing first. So this is the prompt. Answer this in your head. Whose side are you on? Are you on Christine Pelton's side or are you on the school board side? And then think about why. Why are you on the side that you choose? Why is Christine Pelton right? Give me 2 reasons. Or why was the school board's decision the correct one? Give me 2 reasons. Okay? When you've done that, move on. Now I want you to think of real life examples that will help prove or strengthen your reasons. What have you observed in your life to show that Christine Pelton acted in the right way? Or what have you noticed that shows that the school board acted in the correct way? Do you have any personal experiences? Can you cite other experiences with cheating and plagiarism? Perhaps the Aunt Becky stuff. What other things could you relate to this prompt? Let's just think about it. The number 1 mistake that students made when they wrote this essay that year was that they actually didn't address the prompt at all. They might have discussed cheating in general, in vague terms, rather than the position on the issues raised in this news story, because that's the verbiage of the prompt, this news story. So this is examples from last semester. These are the issues with my class's introductions. Number 1, they didn't mention Pelton or the incident in Kansas at all. So as you're skimming your introduction paragraph, if you don't see Christine Pelton's name or the incident in Kansas referred to at all, you don't have a strong enough thesis and you would not get any points on this essay. So that's step number 1. Another issue with the introduction paragraph is that students rephrased or explained that the Kansas incident, what happened, but they never took a stance of their own. This deflects the argumentative purpose. Instead, you are explaining someone else's claim. Don't do that. Pick a side, pick a team, and go for it. And then I want you to underline what you think is your thesis. It needs to be explicit. What is your position? And don't say I think, but just say whoever's right. With no thesis, you can't score higher than a 3. This was on the 9 scale grading rubric. Without a thesis, you can't even get a 1 on this new grading scale. So let's look at some examples from last year. Here is the first introduction. Cheating is an issue that needs to be firmly addressed. The purpose of any school, including our own, is to prepare children for the future, and this extends beyond their education. Children should be taught the values of honesty and integrity as well. Cheating undermines these values, and thus severe punishments against students who cheat are justified, although the severity of the punishment should depend on the importance of the work they cheated on. Now here's what you need in an introduction. Objectively discuss the prompt to show the complexity of the issue. I feel the student did that. They talked about cheating. Offer brief concessions or perhaps a rebuttal to opposing view. And then clearly and concisely state the thesis. Does this student mention Christine Pelton at all or the Kansas incident? The answer is no. I don't care what the rest of their essay looks like. It would get no points. So make sure that you didn't make this mistake as well. Look at this one. Cheating is a very prominent issue in society today, especially in schools. Due to the abundance of resources available for students' usage, it is a very common, easy thing to do. This creates a very controversial topic when cheating occurs, and when the guilty are caught, what should the consequences be? In Kansas, a biology teacher, Christine Pelton, caught nearly 1/5 of her students plagiarizing on their semester projects and gave each student a 0. After parents complained about their kids failing, the school board told Pelton that she needed to go easier on the students. The issue is the backing of the school system, who should not have told her to go easier and should have defended Pelton. Does this student have a clear thesis? I mean, yeah, I would say that last sentence is pretty clear whose side they're on. So now let's talk quickly about your body paragraphs. Your body paragraph should be unified around one reason that you are correct. The reason is why. Why are you right? Pelton was correct in her unfaltering decision to fail the students because. Or Pelton was unjustified in her decision to fail the students because. And answer that like fill in the blank. The school board should never have overstepped Pelton and the school's decision because. Additional comparative examples can help strengthen your argument, and you should provide insight into the cheating culture. But again, the focus of this essay should be on defending your position of the Kansas incident. The examples serve only as your evidence. So you can pull in stuff that you read in your cheating text from last week and in your discussions from Friday if you were here. Those would all serve as wonderful examples of evidence. But again, you're focusing on Christine Pelton and the cheating incident. So looking at your examples, too much versus too little, you need to find a happy, convincing balance. It says your examples should help prove your argument. Don't get caught up in your examples that you forget to argue your position. Look at this example from last year. Some will say cheating is all right, in some cases needed. Some people will say that society is holding them back, putting pressures on them to do well. They feel that like it isn't their fault they cheat, but society's. These views are valid, however, they are misconstrued. Most people cheat because they are lazy. They procrastinate and don't get anything done. This is not due to pressure, but laziness. Another reason these views are wrong is because everyone is part of society. If people continue to blame society, then nothing will be accomplished. Many don't blame themselves for their flaws and choose to blame society. If people want to fix society, they have to stop themselves from cheating. Cheating will not get people anywhere in life. Do you feel compelled and convinced when you read this body paragraph? I'm going to be honest, I don't. It talks a lot about society, but there's nothing in here that stirs me and makes me think, yes, this person really knows what they're talking about. You want your audience to feel that way. You want to, raise them up a little bit. You want to yourself sound very compassionate about your issue, even if you're not, So your tone is very important as well, along with your examples. Look at this. While cheating is immoral, there are some situations in which it can be beneficial. Take the story of Robin Hood, for example. Robin Hood garnered his claim to fame by cheating the rich out of their money and giving it to the poor. Now, in this case, the rich had gotten their wealth at the expense of the poor. This can be looked down on in two ways, righting a wrong or that stealing is a crime. And it goes on to talk about Robin Hood. Now, is this sole example of cheating convincing? I would say no. I would say you need a range of examples. Yeah, it might be good to mention Robin Hood because it's a common tale. It's a universal tale that transcends cultures. But is it enough to convince me of this case? And again, they didn't even talk about the Kansas incident at all. So be careful. Don't get caught up so much in the structure of the essay and trying to have everything that you forget that you're actually arguing your opinion. And how are you going to convince your audience that you're right? You need to think about the depth of your argument. And my answer to all of this is in planning. Now, I don't force you to plan, especially in a time setting, but taking 10-15 minutes to plan your essay before you start writing it is really going to help you get that deep depth of your argument. Highlight the significant words in the prompt. Decide your exact stance. Note 2 reasons to support your stance. List a range of appropriate convincing examples and then elaborate and deeply analyze how those examples prove your thesis. And finally, constantly ask yourself if you are addressing the prompt and if you are proving your thesis. Spend that 10 to 15 minutes planning. And so what I want you to do today, by the way, you have a sample 9 for this prompt. You can look at it and see. It would score a 6. It's the perfect paper for you to look at. So I wanted to give you that. Take some time to exchange with someone sitting near you your essays. Offer this feedback. So answer the questions. Give them some good feedback and have a very awesome polished draft tomorrow. And then after you do that, I want you to get in your assigned groups, and I'm going to give you another Q3 prompt. And I don't want you to write an essay, but I want you to plan it because planning is that important. So as a group, come up with your thesis, your claim. Perhaps make up an argument by analogy as your hook, and then think about historical examples that could support your claim. If we've read any text in this class or in another class that could support your claim, another high school subject or a current issue that we've talked about, if you have any personal experience with that, appeal to authority. Really take time to plan this out, and don't worry about finishing it. We'll finish it tomorrow.